Hey everyone, and welcome to my Singapore vlog. We recently went on a trip to Greece and Singapore was our layover both times. And both layovers were 22 hours. This meant that we got to explore Singapore a little bit as well. So here's a separate vlog to my Greece trip so you can see what Singapore was like from our eyes. During our first layover, we stayed at the Airport Hotel for about 12 hours, which included a complimentary breakfast, and then set off to explore around the airport. We didn't go into Singapore City during the first layover, but the airport was huge, so we wanted to have a look. Very buttery. The Airtel was also handy to book. It was a little bit expensive, but it was handy because we left our luggage there for the day and basically went and explored luggage free. For anyone that hasn't been to the Singapore airport before, there are 4 different terminals and there are so many things to see at each terminal, including dreamscapes, gardens, food courts, and free movies. I won't yap for too much longer, but here is Singapore airport through our eyes during our first layover.
I'm no cactus expert, but I know a prick when I see one.
The SkyTrain was super fun to go on, it was also super clean and super easy to navigate. I was very excited to see what the other terminals had to offer, and it was cool to see the Jewel from the outside as well. Unfortunately, we didn't actually get to see the Jewel in motion this trip, but we did see it from the SkyTrain and we did see it off at night when we returned during our second layover. My favorite garden that we got to see was the butterfly garden. I think it's a lot of people's favorites, but it was super cute. There were butterflies everywhere and it was just so peaceful. There was also a waterfall in there and you guys know that I love waterfalls, so that was cool to see too. This emergence cage was where they hatch the butterflies and have all the different cocoons. You can see a lot of them in different states, and you can actually see some butterflies inside that have hatched. Being at the airport was super handy throughout the day, especially with a little rest on the way to Greece. It helped us adapt to the time zones and also split up the flights, allowing us to hydrate and rest before we continued on again. This was the best view that we got of the Jewel. It includes a 40-foot water vortex, not waterfall, and a bunch of like little hiking areas around it. To get to the Jewel, you actually have to leave the airport and go outside, but we didn't know how to do that on this trip, so we just didn't end up doing it. We did manage to go outside and see the Jewel on the way back, but like I said, it was closed. So it was very dark when we visited.
This is what it looks like just walking through the airport. It's actually quite wide.
I did enjoy seeing the little fish tanks all around the airport too. Just seeing all the goldfish and the koi, just really nice. Made it seem really peaceful.
It escaped. This one's a little sad. You're not looking at the sun. I know it's a sunflower garden, but can there be less sun? The whole store.
Dangerously addictive.
Who did we know that was
Can't
obsessed
stop
with this?
eating.
Yeah, who did we know that was obsessed with this? Is that one dead? Or is it a sucker? Where are you going, friend?
It was soon time for us to find something to eat, and although they had a lot of different cuisine, Alch got excited that they had Popeyes, and we have never seen it anywhere else that we've visited before, so we wanted to try it out. Honestly, I was a little disappointed. At this point in time, it was starting to get a little bit late, and the end of our reservation at Airtel was coming up. So we had to go collect our bags and find some way to spend our time after we've explored the entire airport. We did manage to find a Starbucks so I could have another coffee for the day, just to keep us going until 2 a.m, which was when our next flight was. And we also luckily brought our Magic the Gathering deck so we could play a few rounds before we jumped on the plane. And very soon, we were off to Greece. Welcome back to Singapore. And this time, we had Fizz with us for a few hours.
Be gay, do cry.
Fizz happened to be on the same flight as us from Athens to Singapore.
In the hotel in Singapore. We got 7-Eleven food. Alex eating. Biz is in the shower. life is good. We're gonna sleep for a little bit.
Fizz did have a smaller layover than us, so we had to say goodbye to him early on, and then decided to drop off our baggage and head out into Singapore City.
Made it through security. Trying to find a way out of the airport.
We didn't really have too much of a plan of what we wanted to do. When we left the airport, all we knew is that we wanted to go see Gardens by the Bay, the Oceanarium if we had time because that was newly renovated, and Chinatown because Alch likes to visit all the different Chinatowns in each country we go to. So we got our tourist passes and set on out.
To the downtown line.
Before we went to the gardens, we did have to buy a couple of things, so we found the nearest shopping center, which had water and like little boats in it. It was super cute. So we did a little bit of exploring here before we continued on.
Mark's angry because the sign says that there are otters, but he hasn't seen an otter.
It's where they have the party in the movie.
When we got to the Gardens by the Bay, we realized that it wasn't just the Super Tree Grove, even though that's what is most popular. There were a lot more statues and things around the area that we could see. According to the map, we were near the Flower Dome, so we started to head down that way, but unfortunately, the Flower Dome was closed. It was for some maintenance thing, so we missed out on that one. We weren't too mad because it wasn't in our plans anyway. Even though we didn't go to the Flower Dome, we did go to the gift shop nearby so we could get a couple of souvenirs for our time in Singapore. One of the cooler things we spotted were these ice creams, shaped to look like the Super Tree Grove. But sadly, we didn't get any of those. We did, however, want to go find food, so our next stop was going to a quick restaurant and ordering something to eat. After the food, we could see the Super Tree Grove from a distance, so we started heading that way. There were quite a few art installations around the area as well, so we got to do a little walk by and see what we could find. These were a bunch of different sculptures from different artists celebrating the Singapore 2025 annual exhibition. I think it was very cool that it was just out for a lot of people to see as they were walking by, and it was lucky that we got to see it. We also saw quite a few tour groups around the area, which was cute because they were getting a lot of photos together, which Alch did try and photobomb, but I didn't record any of it, sadly.
We're at the gardens, the Gardens by the Bay, the Super Tree Grove. Hold on, I can't, it won't focus. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
We did the usual sightseeing things, taking photos and videos of each other, and then realized that you can actually go up there. There were two places to go up, either the walking track or the observatory. It was about the same price for both, so we ended up wanting to go to the observatory because there was a cafe up the top and we could take photos of the walking track anyway. Alch was also amused with the elevator going up. It was as if we were going up through the flowers themselves. And this is what it was like at the top. To be completely honest, there is just a lot of footage of us just walking around. I don't do too well with heights, especially because we've been up quite a few observatory towers that just didn't feel stable. This one did though, but I was still kind of holding on and being cautious. Alch's mum was excited to find out that we went to Gardens by the Bay, as it's one of the more popular things to see in Singapore. And so while we were up there, Alch also FaceTimed her, which was super sweet. From the top, you could also see a lot of other art installations, and we spotted this bear one from the top. They were setting it up as we were there. So we waited a little bit, ordered some coffee, had a little treat, and then after we went to the very top of the observatory, went down to go see what the bears were about. And this is us seeing the very top.
Clown Dome, the Flower Dome, Art and Science Museum over there, my love, the Sky Tower, infinity pool thingy, and then we're on the trees. Solar panel. Why so many boats?
I'm pretty sure this is Alch taking a panorama photo, so I just decided to film him doing it. But then after this, we were on our way back down to go see the bears. While we were getting photos and videos, a man approached and actually told us that each of the bears symbolize a different country and they're holding their hands up in the air. This exhibit was in Germany right before it came to Singapore, and they were literally setting it up as we were there. We soon continued on, passing the Disney Garden, which we did not stop in to see, but I got a photo with Mickey before attempting to go to the Oceanarium. The Oceanarium recently reopened earlier this year after it was renovated and built to be 3 times the size as it used to be, and it took us getting a train, a bus, and then another train to get there. The second train, however, was the Sentosa Express because the Oceanarium was actually on the island of Sentosa, which is a completely separate area where they have other parks like Universal and things. We only had to get through Vivo City to get there.
Oh my god, you guys, they know how escalators work.
すごい.
I made that joke because a lot of the escalators that we saw were under maintenance.
Next stop, Resorts World Station, Singapore's only first integrated family resort.
If we had enough time, I would have loved to take Alch to go see Universal. Neither of us have been before, and it would have been really cool, but as we only had the day, and I knew people were saying that you had to spend at least 3 hours at the Oceanarium, we only had time to go and see that. That didn't stop us from taking a few photos and videos along the way though.
Be so hot up in there.
Okay.
Damn.
You'll know that we love an aquarium, and we have been to an aquarium on every international trip that we have been on together. So I apologize in advance because the next 6 minutes is just aquarium footage. I hope you'll enjoy it, but also feel free to skip ahead if you're fully aware of what an aquarium looks like. I just get really excited for them, okay? The Singapore Aquarium also hosts the world's largest jellyfish tank, and that's what these button jellyfish are currently floating in. I also think these horseshoe crabs were getting it on, but I don't know for sure, so I kept the footage in.
Why the wrong thing?
This was probably the first time I've seen an axolotl at an aquarium. I have seen them at pet stores in Australia, but not at an aquarium, so that was cool to see. Another one of my sea creature favorites to visit are the sharks. I always keep an eye out for the shark tanks and any tunnels that we can walk under because I just find them fascinating. I recommend pausing here if you want to read these, but these were shark tales from around the world and they were super interesting to read. I was also super intrigued to see all the different types of eels that they had at the aquarium. I don't think I've seen that many eels in my entire life, but they were also cool and also colourful. This fish, I can't remember its full name, but it was named after Achilles, and I thought it was so cute because it was super zoomy around its tank. Another cool species to see were the sea dragons. I'm also a big fan of dragons, and I don't think I've seen these in person either, but they were super close to the rehabilitation and water cleansing area. This massive tank here was right next to a cafe and restaurant. The restaurant was only open at specific times, but it was cool that the Oceanarium also had an area that people could dine at and watch the fish and other sea creatures. In these tanks were the tiny little sea creatures. One of them had a bunch of shrimp babies, and the other one had sea monkeys. I was actually surprised that sea monkeys were thought to be included in an aquarium.
Pineapple's getting away.
As we got further through the Oceanarium, we went through different areas which explored shipwrecks, which held antiques, pots and pans, and a whole lot of other treasures that were found. We also started to get deeper into the darker ocean areas, seeing species that you wouldn't really see closer to the shore, and eventually we got down to the dark ocean. They didn't have any living creatures from the deep sea, but they had preserved bodies of other species that were found further down. One looked like it was giving a side eye. and they all looked just a little creepy. In this room, they had a few other species that you would find hiding amongst the rocks on the seafloor. They had a giant whale skeleton that you could walk underneath, and they had projections on the walls of underground vents. This was a pretty cool room to go and see. After we finished up at the aquarium, we definitely stopped through the gift shop and got a plushie. It is tradition that every time we go to the aquarium, we get a plushie. And because we saw axolotls at the aquarium in real life this time, we got an axolotl. From here, it was time to head towards Chinatown so Alch could have a look and we could find something to eat. The only problem was there was a thunderstorm coming and there were hundreds of people leaving Sentosa Island all at once. So we had to figure that out.
This one's for bread. It's a place called Standard Bread.
We did find this place at Sentosa with a bread mascot, so shout out to Bread Avenger, a community member who it made me think of.
We're on an adventure. The line for the train was way too long, and so we're walking 20 minutes to Hotel Vivo to then catch a train back and hopefully get to Chinatown, but it looks like it's going to storm. There's lightning, so I don't know what's happening there. So we're going to see as we go. Otherwise, we'll just head back to the airport.
You mean this lightning?
Oh! That was something.
Although there was a lot of lightning and thunder, there wasn't actually any rain, so we were able to walk along the harbour side, leading up to Vivo City. And once we got our bearings within the shopping centre, we headed down to the train line and was able to take a train directly to Chinatown. There were some cool artworks leading out of the station, so I was excited to capture that, but I was even more excited to see if we could pick up any souvenirs from the Chinatown itself. Of course, there were quite a few market stalls, ice creams, places to eat, fruit stalls, and tourist stalls that sold a whole bunch of souvenirs. We were on a little bit of a time crunch because we needed to get back to the airport a few hours before boarding time, so we were rushing a tiny little bit, but managed to find some souvenirs. Alch was also keeping an eye out on places to eat. We weren't really sure what we were hungry for or what we were craving, but there was quite a lot to choose from. Personally thought that the buildings were really cool. They kind of reminded me of a movie set and were brightly lit with a lot of different signs to promote the shops.
Ah, bad durian.
There were also a lot of murals and different paintings around the area, and I'm glad that we got to visit and had the time to actually have a little look around. This is where we ended up eating. We smelt the pho off the street, so we just followed our noses and ended up getting that for dinner. Gotta love when you go to Singapore, Chinatown and eat Vietnamese food. It was really yummy though, so I'm glad that's what we went with. Not too long after that, it was time to head back to the airport. We only needed to change train lines once, so it was 2 trains back to the airport. And right before we actually entered the airport, I wanted to stop by and check out the Jewel while we were there. We were actually about 20 minutes late, so we missed the last show for the water vortex, but people were still allowed to walk inside. And that's what we did. We went and got some photos and some videos. It was super dark without all the lights, of course, but I was still happy we got to see it.
Made it to the Jewel, but we were 20 minutes late, so it was shut. But we got some photos anyway. Got to see it briefly.
The rest of the night went by pretty fast, but basically we went back through customs again into the airport and very slowly made our way back to the gate. We were lucky that we found a little place to sit that had a charging port so we could make sure all the devices were charged, and very soon we were on our way back home, very sadly.
Last flight. I guess we'll see you in Sydney.